Hey guys, Mooki2much here, and welcome to Make a Tree with Mooki. A few things that you'll need for this tutorial are Unity 5.5.1 F1, and I'm using Blender 2.78. This tutorial is going to teach you guys how to make a tree for Unturned, but this is just the legacy trees. This is not including the speed trees. The files you will need from the examples folder are the physics, tree, and tree cards. You are also going to want to grab the tag manager and replace this file in your Unity project folder under project settings. Okay, so first off we're going to start with the tree trunk, and we're going to start off with just a basic cube. And we're going to go into edit mode here and look at the side here. We have a mesh display. Under mesh display there's edge info, and if you just check mark the length here, you can see all the measurements of all your faces. So we're just starting off with a basic 1 by 1 by 1 cube here, as you can see. Now we're going to go into face select mode here, and we're just going to select this bottom face and pull it down by 0.5. And now we're on the z-axis of minus 1.5 on the bottom face, but we're going to remove that face. And then we're going to go up to the top face here. We're going to pull that up to about 16.5 on the z-axis. You can go anywhere from 16.5 to 14. It depends on how tall you want your trees to be. And now switching over into object mode, we're just going to rename this model_2. We're going to go back into edit mode here, and we're going to select our whole model by pressing A, and then we're going to press U for unwrap, and we're going to select light map pack. And then just hit OK, and you should see your UV on the UV editor. So now we're going to select all on our UV, and we're going to just shrink this down by scaling it. Then we're just going to grab it and drag it all to the left hand side using Control to snap. And we're going to select this top face here and drag that part of the UV over to the right hand side. Okay, so that's all done being unwrapped now. Now we're going to go back into object mode. Now what we're going to do here is what we want to do is duplicate the model. So we're going to hit Shift D, and as you can see I'm dragging it around. If you right click, it'll just snap it right to its origin point. So now we're going to move this to layer 2. And then we're going to take this model 2 and we're going to move it to layer 3. Now going over to layer 2, we're going to rename this model Model 1. Now we're going to go back into edit mode here. And this top face we are going to remove, but I'm going to show you why we need to remove it. We're going to go to modifiers, and we're going to add modifier. We're going to add subdivision surface. And see, we have a point here, so this is why we want to remove that top face. We don't want this point, so we'll just take that off. And now we have our round tree trunk for Model 1. Now going into object mode, we're going to want to make a copy of this, so we're going to hit Shift D. If you move your mouse around, you can move it around, but you right click and just snap it there. Move that to layer 1. Go to layer 1 and we're going to rename this model 0. Okay, and we're just going to go down to our modifier, click on the views, and make it 2. It's going to add more faces to our model and make it our model 0. After we've done all that, we want to hit apply so that we can add the other faces that we need. Notice there's some extra lines here. You can just get rid of those by limited dissolve. And then at the very top, we're going to select all the faces or all the edges. All you have to do is hold down Control and you can select all those edges on top. And then just hit F for face. And while we have it selected over in the UV here, we'll just drag it over to the other side. Now on the model 0, you want a bottom face, because when you cut down the tree, you're going to see the bottom of that tree. On model 2 and 1, you don't need to have that bottom face. It's not necessary. So what we're going to do after all that is we're just going to go ahead and do those other 2 models. I'm not going to include it in the video though. Now, after we've done all that, we're going to want to attach a UV to it. The UV for the tree bark is a 2x2 texture, so it's very small. There's 2 different colors on it, as you can see. And the leaves texture is usually a 64x64 PNG with a transparent background. Now we're going to export the model. So we're going to go to FBX here. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a folder to put our model into. So we're going to go into our Unity project that I have created already. Then we're going to go into Game, Sources, Resources, and make one right with the Birch folder here. And we'll just title it Tree Tutorial. Okay, so down on the bottom here you're going to see all these different options. We're going to select FBX 6.1 ASC, and we're going to pull that up so we can see, and just down here we can get rid of animation so that it doesn't attach any kind of animation to it. So the tree stump is going to be very, very simple. I'm doing the same thing on each model, so I'm just going to show you the model 0 part. We're going to go into edit mode. We're going to hit Control R to put a ring cut, and then we're going to hold Control down while we click it, drag it down. If you want finer points, you can hold Shift as well. And we're just going to put it around 1.56 on the Z axis, which you can always check on your top right there. Okay, and so we're just going to basically remove these top faces here. And we'll remove the bottom face as well because the stump's not going to be going anywhere. And go into edge select this edge, put a face there, drag it over, and there we go. Now you have a stump. Export it the same way you did with the tree trunk. So to start off the foliage, we're going to create an empty plane axis, and we're just going to move it down by 4. But actually we're going to have to redo that because I put that in the wrong transform location. Over here we're going to have to change the radius to 2, and down here we'll change it to -4 on the z-axis. Okay, so we're just going to leave that alone for now. And we're going to move on to the plane. Okay, so we're just going to put one of those in, and we're going to make it 5 for now. You're going to be changing this later on anyway. So we're going to unwrap it. And we're going to change the image here by going to Open Image. And we're going to select Foliage. Okay, so now we're just going to pull this up to about 5 on the z-axis. You can always hold Control and you can snap it up and down. Makes it easy for moving it to specific locations that you want. And we're just going to Shift D, copy this, and go up to on the z-axis to the very top, and shrink this down a little bit. Now we're going to go into face select mode, and we're going to rotate this a little bit, and then we're going to Shift D and rotate this other one a little bit the other way. Now we have 2 faces on the bottom. You can always rotate a little bit more just to make it look a little different than the other one, or even scale it a little bit if you want. And we're just going to continue to add some more faces here, probably about a total of 8. I always rotate them around a little bit, scale them, just so that they look a little different on each spot. Now here's a neat tip that I'm going to show you here. What you can do to make rotating around a particular spot easier is you can go and select this trunk here. And if you click Shift S and then cursor to selected, down here on the bottom you can click cursor to make it your median point, and then from there you can go back to your faces, and then you can just hit Shift D, rotate. If you put it on Z, then you can rotate it around the trunk. I'm just going to go ahead and add a couple more faces here, and then I'm going to speed through the rest of the other 2. Basically each step I'm just going to be duplicating this model and then adding more faces to it for each step. Okay, now that that's all done, we're just going to delete the tree trunks, because we don't need them for this. Okay, so now the next step what we're going to do is we're going to go into Vertex Paint. Now, the only two colors that you're actually going to need are red and black. Red basically is the windiest, and black is no wind at all. So you can set it all the way up to 1, that makes it very windy. We're just going to go to black at first here. And if you go into solid mode, it's a little easier to see. And we're just going to paint all the vertexes black. Okay, so now that we made sure we've got all these vertices covered in black, we're going to want to switch the color over to red. And we're going to put it at about 0.4 because we don't want this tree to go haywire. We just want it to be a little windy. And we're just going to do a couple vertices here and there on the outsides, but make sure to keep some of them black so that the whole tree doesn't just sway off of the tree trunk. So once you have all that painted up, you're going to want to go over here into Object Data, and you're going to want to select Auto Smooth and put it at 30%. And then we're going to want to go over to our modifier, and we're going to want to put Normal Edit on. And then down here where you see the little cube, we're just going to want to select that empty thing that we created earlier. And as you can see, it changes how the light reacts to the whole tree. And now basically we're going to do the same thing to all 3 models. I'm just going to speed through the other 2 here just so that I can save some time here. And then after that we're going to export it the same way we did the tree trunk and the tree stump. And then we're going to move on to Unity. So our first step is going to be setting up our files in Unity. As you can see on my top here, I have file scale 0.01. If you have the same thing when you export FBXs, just make sure your scale factor is at 100 so that when you put your models in, they are at 111 in the measurement. And that's the only thing you change on the foliage. The rig should be at none, and animations should be unchecked so there are no animations imported. And with the rig and animation, that goes for all 3 models. The only difference on the tree and stump itself is we're going to change the normals to calculate, and we're going to change the angle to 45 degrees, and change it to calculate legacy split tangents. Now we're just going to go into the materials here, and we're going to select both of the materials at the same time holding down shift, and we're going to change this color here to white. That's going to help your colors react properly in game. And down here to smoothness, we're going to put that to 0. We're just going to select the foliage here, and we're going to switch that over to framework and leaves. This is the shader you'll download from the link below. And we're just going to select our foliage and bark here and drag them both in. Now setting up the bark texture, we are just going to change this to clamp and point, no filter, and apply. For the foliage, we're going to leave the wrap mode at repeat. We're going to put the filter mode to trilinear, and we're going to change it to 16 and hit apply. Now we're just going to apply those textures to those materials. And now we can see the colors of our tree. Now what we're going to do is set up the tree model. And we're going to select all the foliage and all the models and set them to resource on both tags and layer. And we'll just drag them out of there. Now we're going to select all the stump models and we're going to change those to debris. Now the reason we copied Nelson's tree example is because we're basically just going to copy his folder, make a duplicate of it. So we'll just go down here to the birch folder, select it, press Shift D to make a copy of it, and then we're just going to name it Tree Tutorial. Okay, and then we're just going to pull all of this out of the folder into our hierarchy and delete it out of the folder. Now we're just going to remove Nelson's models from these bundles here as soon as we reset the position. You don't want to get rid of these subfolders, you want to keep them here, so just delete what's inside them. Okay, so now that's all ready to start putting our models in. Okay, once we've done that, we're just going to want to make sure that all the measurements look right on our tree, and we're going to want to attach the LODs. So we're just going to click and drag these into each LOD spot. As it is right now, this tree is basically about the same size as Nelson's, so I don't really have to change any of the capsule colliders or anything like that. But when you do change capsule colliders, the stump and stump clip should match each other, as well as the clip and the resource should match each other when it comes to the transform locations and whatnot. Make sure you do the LODs for the stump. And there we go, we're just going to click and drag all this back into the folder. And one part I had to include into my video last minute here that I forgot to mention is the skybox. That's why we grabbed the tree card. So we're going to grab the tree card center lit and we're going to throw it into the hierarchy here. We're going to change it to 18 by 18 by 19. And we're going to tag and layer it as resource. And then we're just going to name it Skybox. And then drag it into our bundles folder. Now before we bundle that, we're going to make the DAT file. So we're going to go into Nelson's Unturned folders and we're going to go into resources. We're going to just copy his maple and we're going to paste it in here. Rename it Tree Tutorial. Make sure all your caps and everything are matching your bundle. And then we're going to open that up, make sure this matches as well. And then what we're going to do in this DAT file is we're going to remove the GUID. Just completely remove that space, and then we're going to change the ID number. We're just going to remove these lines of speed tree because we're not going to be doing this speed tree. And we're going to just add asset underscore bundle underscore version space 2. And then save that. And just so we can find it in the editor, we're going to name this Tree Tutorial. Okay, so now we're just going to go back in and we're going to bundle that into our bundle folder. And then we're going to test it out. Okay, so I just made a random map here with some basic ground, and we're going to go into Tree Tutorial here, and we're just going to plop down some of our trees. Okay, there we go, Tree Tutorial. Alright, just put a couple of these down. As you can see, they do look fairly similar to Nelson's. You can always, move the faces around to change the shapes of the trees, but I just made it basically kind of roundish. Now we're going to go into play and chop down our tree and see how it works. Alright. As you can see, the leaves are moving. I did not boost the skills on this character, so this might take a couple hits here. There you have it. We have a tree that you can chop down and it works, and it looks like it's moving in the wind. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please leave a comment and don't forget to like and subscribe. As always, stay unturned.